This time on Screencast a Week, we look at a bunch of different ways to clean up the visual clutter on your Mac by managing your windows with Moom. Hello, people of the internet. This is Screencast a Week, and I'm Kevin Yank. This week, we're looking at window clutter and how to deal with it. If you're like me, you end up doing a lot of things on your Mac at once, and it's all too easy to end up in this position where you're being distracted from the task at hand by those background windows. There's not much point, if you ask me, to using a graphical windowed environment if all it's going to do is distract you from the task at hand. That's why I like to take really firm control over the size and positions of windows on my Mac, and therefore create a really focused environment that helps me get the job done instead of distracting me from it. To do this, I use an app called Moom from a company called Many Tricks. It's called Many Tricks because all of their apps do a whole lot of different things. I'm going to show you the features of Moom that I use for my environment, but if you find that you use your Mac in a different way, for example, you use the mouse more than the keyboard, feel free to dig into Moom's options. There's a free trial available, so there's definitely no downside to giving it a shot. The first thing I do when I set up Moom is to set it to launch automatically on login so that it's running quietly in the background. I also turn off show preferences on launch because I'll have my preferences set up the way I want. And then I set it to run as a faceless application. So it doesn't appear in the dock and it doesn't appear in the menu bar. It's just running quietly in the background. And if I ever need to adjust my preferences, I can just launch Moom again while it's already running and the preferences will come up for me. Out of the box, Moom has this little flyout menu from the zoom button of any window. And you can quickly use it to position windows in half display chunks, and you can see I've just used it there to put these two browser windows side by side. That's a nice start, but the first thing I like to do in Moom is set up a window margin. So I can choose this separate windows by 10 pixels and also apply it to screen edges. And now you can see that when I position these windows using that flyout menu, it creates this nice gap between the windows and around the screen edges that has my desktop background showing through. And I find this makes it even clearer where one window ends and the other one begins. So right away, I've got this really nice side-by-side layout free of clutter and distraction. But if you ask me, that little flyout menu, as cool as it is kind of finicky to use. It's hard to get your mouse right over that green button and then right over these other buttons without losing your place. So I like to use a different feature of Moom, and that's here in the Mouse tab, and I go over to Snap to Edges and Corners, and I'll turn this on. And now right away you can see if I drag a window over to the side of a screen, it gives me this nice outline so that I can get the window into that half screen position. It also does the same with the top and bottom, but I find that on a widescreen display, this upper half or bottom half is not really that useful to me. So what I do is I go ahead and set the top of the screen to go full screen, and the bottom half I set it to do nothing. So now if I drag a window to the top of my monitor and let go, it occupies the full display, and I drag it away, I get back to its original size. If you're coming to OS X from a recent version of Windows, you might know this feature from Windows. Well, now with Moom, you've got it on the Mac as well. The next thing I'm going to show you in Moom is the keyboard tab. Now, if you know me, I'm a really keyboardy kind of person. I like to keep my hands on the keyboard to keep things going fast. And with Moom, the keyboard tab really makes that possible. So the first thing you're going to want to do is set a shortcut to trigger Moom in keyboard mode. And the shortcut I recommend is Control-Option-Command-M. The reason I like this keyboard shortcut is it uses all three of the modifier keys on the bottom left corner of your keyboard, so you can just sort of mash them using your left hand, and with your right hand you just hit the M key, which you're already using to minimize windows, and it also stands for Moom in my mind, so it's really easy to remember. You can just train your hand into that keyboard shortcut really quickly. So Control-Option-Command-M, and setting that keyboard shortcut reveals all of these additional settings. Now, these defaults are not too bad, but I'm going to show you what I do. First of all, moving windows around in small increments not really useful to me. So I set the arrow keys to move and zoom to half screen, and therefore I don't need the command key to do that anymore. If your Mac has multiple displays like mine does, it's also handy to set a keyboard method for moving windows to another display. I do that by holding down the Option key and hitting an arrow. I also don't use the Tab key to center a window much, so I'm going to turn that off. Now I'll show you how that works. With a window selected here, I'll hit that keyboard shortcut, Control Option Command M, and I get this Moom bezel pop up. And if I don't do anything with it, it goes away after a few seconds. But while it's up, I can hit any of those keyboard shortcuts. So I can use the left and right arrow keys to go left and right. I can use the up and down arrow keys to do the top half or the bottom half of my display. And I can hit two arrows in quick succession, let's say up right, to move a window into a corner of the screen. Of course, I set some other keyboard shortcuts there, but you might find them a little difficult to remember at first. So there's a nice trick. You can just go and choose Show Cheat Sheet in Moom. And now when the bezel pops up, it comes up with this cheat sheet at the bottom that's a nice little reminder. So I can see that I can hit the space key to zoom a window to full screen, and I can hit Return to move a window back to its original size and position before Moom took control of it. The other thing I can do is move windows to another display when I have one connected to my Mac. You'll notice these other two shortcuts down here, and they have to do with custom controls, and that's what I'll show you next. Now, snapping windows into these half-screen configurations is a really nice starting point, but I like to have even more control over my window configurations. So let me show you a few more of Moom's features. Over here in the Mouse tab, I can turn on Enable Move and Zoom Grid with 6x4 cells. Now, if I close Moom, I can show you how this works. When I hover over the zoom button of a window, I now get this grid. And just by dragging out an area, I can resize a window to the exact position that I want. I can get this nice 1/3, 2/3 effect here, where I might be working in this window and using this secondary window for reference. This is a really nice layout, but having to use that grid every time I want to position windows like this can get tedious in a hurry. So instead, I use Moom's Custom tab. Let me show you how it works. Firing up Moom again here, I'll go over to the Custom Controls tab, and you can see there are a number of custom layouts already defined. We've got this one that occupies the left-hand 2/3 of the screen, and this one that occupies the right-hand 2/3. Those just happen to be the window positions that I said I really liked. This third option down here where it resizes a window to 800 by 600 pixels, I don't find that useful, so I'm going to select it and hit the backspace key to delete it. There are a couple more custom layouts that I do want though, so I'm going to add plus, and the first one I want is the center 2/3 of the screen, and then a fourth one that I want is the full screen, so I'm just going to drag it out there. Now, Moom gives you several ways to use these custom layouts. The first one, if you're a mouse jockey, is to enable access to custom controls here on the Mouse tab. With that done, I'm going to open a couple of more apps here. And you can see when I hover over the zoom button, I now have this sort of user drop-down menu, which gives me access to my custom controls. This sample custom controls title here is something that you can control in Moom as well. So I'll just go back to my custom tab here and scroll right to the top. And you can see if I expand the menu header, I can now make that title say anything I want. I'm just going to say custom controls. Now going back to this, I can choose any of the layouts I want. So I can very quickly snap this window to the left and then this window over to the right. But working with that flyout menu using the mouse is a little finicky if you ask me. As you know by now, I much prefer keeping my fingers on the keyboard. So if I open Moom again, I can show you how to set keyboard shortcuts for these custom layouts. First of all, you can see that these two built-in custom layouts come with a default keyboard shortcut of 1 and 2. And I can use those shortcuts when I invoke Moom with the keyboard. So if I close Moom here and then select my terminal window, when I bring up the Moom bezel, you can see these custom shortcuts down at the bottom here. So if I hit the number 1, it'll move my terminal window over to the left 2/3. If I hit the number 2, it'll bring it over into position 2. So you can set up these numbered positions, or indeed you can use any key on your keyboard to create these custom shortcuts. Now that's not bad, but having to invoke Moom and then hit the shortcut for the position I want is not quite as fast as it could be. We can go even faster. So I'll delete these 1 and 2 shortcuts, and instead I'm going to define shortcuts using some modifier keys. I'm going to use that same Control-Option-Command combination that I have for the Moom shortcut, and then I'll add arrow keys to the mix. So a left arrow will send me over to the left, a right arrow to move a window to the right. This central location I'll use a down arrow for, and I'll use an up arrow for a window to occupy the full screen. Now you can see these shortcuts have a white background instead of the yellow background that I had before. And that's because they contain modifier keys, and therefore these shortcuts are system global. That means I don't even need to bring up the Moom bezel to invoke them. So now I'll close down Moom, and you can see I'll just hit Control-Option-Command left arrow, and I can move that window over to the left, right arrow to bring it back. If I have my browser open here, I might want to move this window into the center so that I can read something before I get back to work. And if I really want to focus, I can use my up arrow version to make it occupy the whole screen. So just by holding your fingers on those modifier keys and then moving around with the arrow key, you can toss a window anywhere you might want it to go, and your windows are never out of position and never distracting. This is how I control window positions on my Mac, using these global arrow key shortcuts to put windows in these common positions, and then if I need more control, I'll bring up the Moom bezel and use the shortcuts there to put windows in half-screen positions and to toss windows between my multiple displays. It's a really powerful way to take complete control over the positions of the windows on your Mac and keep everything neat and tidy. As I said, Moom has plenty of other tricks up its sleeves, so feel free to use my setup as a starting point, and then check out the excellent online help that it comes with to read about everything else it can do. Just one example that I love is it can recognize external displays when they're connected to your Mac. So when I get to the office in the morning and I plug in my external display, Moom recognizes it and immediately moves all of my windows to exactly the positions where I like to have them for all of the apps that I normally leave running on my Mac. It's like being welcomed to the office by a little bit of magic every morning, and I love that feature. If you're ready to check out Moom, just head over to manytricks.com and grab the free trial. That's it for Screencast a Week this week. Check out screencastaweek.com to catch up on all the previous episodes and to find out how to support the show. You can also subscribe on YouTube to get notified when every new episode goes live. Until next week, I'm Kevin Yank. Thanks for watching.